Okay.
Recording in progress.
Okay, welcome everyone to our October 29th, 2024, 2 o'clock Commissioners' Consent Agenda meeting. Let the record reflect that we did not receive written comments for items on today's agenda. We do have, we'll go ahead and let's stand for the pledge and then we'll get going.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Well, we've had a busy day today, so let the record reflect that we have all 5 commissioners are present. Commissioner Waldrop is on Zoom, so thank you for joining us, Commissioner Waldrop. And we do have 7 people that have signed up for Open Public Forum. I will just go ahead and have each of those 7 people come up, and we'll go ahead and allow for the 3 minutes each, and then we will get going after that. So I'm going to start with Pete Rayner.
Good afternoon, Pete Rayner, 4848 East Valley Springs Road. I'm here today because shortly after the Pend Oreille County courts ruled against the county's approval of the gun club site, I contacted my well driller, Fogle Pump, to find out what the well situation was in that area to see what it would be like to try to liquidate that property in 10-acre parcels. He suggested that I wait until I could receive a letter that he sent me from Department of Ecology, which I provided copies to you, and an attendant case law. Essentially, what these cases say, and it's interesting to read the dissenting opinion, and you may share some of the concerns of this dissenting opinion, but according to the Department of Ecology, if any third party, they sometimes refer to them as horrible developers, but if any third party participates in the amalgamation or infrastructure of a parcel that's converted into 10-acre parcels, it's now called a development. And as a development, it no longer qualifies, all the parcels within that, it no longer qualifies for the exemption from a water right that you need to be able to build a home on them. And it's interesting because the 2 cases that they cite, one was in 2002 and the second one was in the last 8 or 9 years, and I provided references to them. But it's interesting that this information was provided to my well driller, and there's literally hundreds of 10-acre parcels or candidates for parcels that our residents, our citizens have been building on for decades, and just assumed that you could buy a 10-acre parcel, you could go get a water right, build your dream home, and move on. I don't know where this sits. I don't know why it's sat so long, but the research I've done, there's from 20 to 150 to 200 10-acre parcels sold into people's dream home every year in our county. And whether you agree with 10-acre parcels or not, the law is the law. And if we're going to allow that, it seems like we need to arm ourselves to how we can circumvent this, or and maybe this is a case for the Chevron case, but the dissenting opinions talk about how they've stretched the law to get a different outcome than the intent of providing our residents 10-acre parcels. So I brought it to you. I leave it to your wisdom to figure out how to do it, but I'm in the middle of 2 or 3 things where people who have 160 acres and want to do 16 lots can't do it, or they're scared to do it. They're afraid if they bring this third party in, that property's condemned. So I bring it to your attention. It's not a small part of our housing that we provide to our residents. And thank you.
Thank you. And as you can see, we're just getting that information, so we have it.
We got it now.
Next, I have Craig Volesing.
Good afternoon, everyone. Craig Vollasing is announced, still on Grove Road. You have my address. First, let me say that it was encouraging to hear your discussion regarding the formation of a task force to address the PFAS pollution crisis on the West Plains this morning. With a distant glance at the list of potential participants Mr. French presented, it seems you would be headed for assembling a broad spectrum of stakeholders, organizations, professionals, agencies, etc., to be applauded. Please make that list available to the public and to all of those who have been invited to date. One troubling piece of your discussion, though, this morning, Mr. French suggested that he and Commissioner Kearns represent the Board of County Commissioners in the building of this task force. With all due respect to Mr. Kearns, having both commission representatives come from the long-standing political majority of the commission is ill-advised. The protracted unfolding of this crisis has fostered a significant diminishment of trust and confidence in the role of county commission level involvement and representation and performance. Many of those directly affected are now referring to this majority not as the majority, but rather, bit tongue-in-cheek, the controlling interest. I'm hearing it more and more. Commissioner French is surely one that you do want as part of this effort, whether that might be just until January or beyond. The other must be one of the minority. Again, be mindful of the need here to rebuild confidence and trust out on the West Plains and maybe elsewhere. Further, as you build this task force, it is understandable that the PFAS crisis is front and center. However, the West Plains is experiencing other ongoing and alarming water resource issues: chronic flooding, reduction of aquifer recharge capability, storm and meltwater runoff challenges, flooding and pollution, and other land use decisions affecting water quality and quantity. Please create not a PFAS task force, but rather a water resources task force. To restrict these efforts to the former and not acknowledge the breadth of the challenges we all face, it would be regarded at best farcical and at worst grossly negligent. And depending upon one's perspective, virtually criminal.
Thank you. Next, we have Mary Bonham. Is Mary Bonham or Benham? Sorry, looked like a U there, so apologize.
Thank you, Mary Benham, West Plains 99224. This is regarding King County PFAS action. Quoting from the King County website, King County is testing the water from landfills, wastewater treatment facilities, fish, and soil to understand the measure and scope of PFAS contamination. Continuing the quote from their website, in 2023, King County filed a federal lawsuit against past and current PFAS manufacturers to hold them accountable for contamination costs. PFAS contamination requires collaboration to protect communities and natural resources. Working with our partners in the business, community, and government sectors, we strive to find innovative solutions to address PFAS. Our partners include EPA, Washington Department of Health, Department of Ecology, University of Washington, Washington Water Trust, Toxic-Free Futures, and numerous community groups. We work with local experts in county and tribal health programs, community advocates, legislators, and policymakers to create changes and take actions that reduce exposure to PFAS, end quote from the King County website. Contrast SeaTac with our Spokane airport. There was no shameful 7-year cover-up, blocking of grants, or use of attorneys to delay mandated remediation. SeaTac PFAS was detected around 2018. Steps were taken to investigate the source, monitor levels, and implement remediation strategies. 2023 Seattle Times article, quote, "We know we have impacted the environment. We don't know the extent of it," said an environmental program manager with SeaTac. Currently, the main line of attack involves costly filtration that sends contaminated water through large tanks packed with thousands of pounds of carbon, such as specially treated coal that can absorb PFAS, end quote. SeaTac's honesty, integrity, and proactive approach, as opposed to Spokane's, clearly demonstrates the urgent need for a city-county water resources task force composed of Spokane, Airway Heights, Cheney, Medical Lake, at least 2 county commissioners as proposed by Mr. Volansing, Fairchild, the Spokane and Kalispell tribes, the West Plains community, and technical water personnel. The 5th District was deceived. A task force should have been created 7 years ago. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have Liz Goodwin Oaks.
Greetings. My name is Liz Goodwin Oaks. I reside in the West Plains. My year started with a cancer diagnosis. While in shock, I quickly learned how friends and family respond to the C word. There was fear, concern, love. A couple weeks later, I got my well test results back, and I found out my well was contaminated with PFAS from the airport. Then I learned how people respond to the news of a contaminated well. Responses ranged from, "Where are you moving to? When do you leave? Who do you sue? Why is this allowed? Isn't anyone helping?" But the heaviest of all the responses was, "Is this what gave you cancer?" When I moved to the area over 5 years ago, I was impressed with the natural beauty and the potential to grow a farm. My partner and I had a list of must-haves for our new home, and at the top was good water, a deep well. It was 2019, and I thought I did due diligence. I had read about Fairchild to the west of where we were looking, so I had my realtor order a well test. She didn't know to order the EPA 533 test, the only one that specifically checks for PFAS, so we just got the generic test for naturally occurring elements. Everything seemed fine. We didn't know to ask for anything different. Because the airport had not disclosed that they had been dumping contaminants into the land and subsequently into the aquifer, because it had not been publicly disclosed in 2017 when they found out about the elevated levels in their tests, my partner and I went ahead and made the largest investment of our lives and bought a home in the West Plains. You can imagine the devastation I felt knowing that my body was in crisis and my sole source of drinking water was toxic. I had my blood tested, and its results were consistent with my well results. My local doctors don't know much on the subject, so I went to Seattle to see an environmental medicine specialist who said all you can do now is wait and watch your blood results for changes. And number 1, don't drink the water. A Spokane doc advised me to move, but it's not that easy to sell a home in an area where an environmental contamination is coming to light while you are fighting cancer. My family and I prioritized our health and invested in filtration, and now, thousands of dollars later, we have drinkable water. We couldn't afford to wait for help from the government or the liable party. I am here to support a step towards a solution, a task force that includes subject matter experts and at least 2 county commissioners. The community must have a citizen representative included as well. This problem is too big for one representative to try and manage. The solution needs transparency to avoid future conflicts of interest and to ensure timely and effective results. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, we have H.T. Higgins.
Good afternoon, Spokane County Commissioners. My name is H.T. Higgins. I'm a resident of Spokane County, District 2, Lincoln Street, 99203. The first right we have as American citizens and guaranteed by the United States Constitution is the protection of life. Your most important practice as elected officials is to ensure you invest our government's time, talent, and treasure in protecting human life. Each unhoused citizen of Spokane County has the right to the protection of his or her life from inclement weather. Without shelter available to all our citizens, when the temperature is 20 degrees, we as a community are not protecting this most basic right of life. As you are challenged to find solutions to our homeless crisis in Spokane County, a very complex, nuanced, and human challenge, it is important to first have context to understand the culture and the lives of our unhoused friends. Second, it is important to experience what our unhoused friends experience each and every night in the dark, cold streets and encampments of our county. From the Division Street corridor to Riverfront Park to many hidden underpasses, dark alleys, and vacant lots. Both you and I can't completely experience it because we all have warm beds to go home to. However, being able to see, smell, hear, and touch what they experience allows our unhoused friends to be seen and our voiceless friends to be heard. I'm pleading with all of you to say yes to an urban plunge. You received an email on October 18th inviting you to participate next Monday night with the City Council. I was not aware that I was breaking the open public meeting laws because only 3 council members and 2 county commissioners can go in the same vehicle. So you're going to receive an email, a follow-up one that's going to give you 3 different dates, 3 different times for you to participate. And I ask you, please, please, come for a ride and really see what's going on out in our community. It is the most detrimental challenge for life and for our businesses in Spokane County. And it needs to have the kind of emphasis that shows how important it really is. So thank you.
Thank you. Next, I have Julia McHugh.
Before you start the timer, I sent my presentation to Ms. Anderson, who I did not realize is out today, and so you should have had it had she been here. You should be getting it.
Okay.
So, greeting electeds. Julia McHugh, Palisades Neighborhood, West Plains. We West Plains residents living with contaminated drinking water are your most promising partners and key to overall success in solving significant problems here. The attached county aquifer susceptibility map, which is in your attachment, was published in 2018, updating the CARA ordinance, which is Critical Aquifer Recharge Area Ordinance. The map depicts West Plains aquifer with moderate susceptibility, which is erroneous. The ordinance makes no mention of the West Plains aquifer system or PFAS in our groundwater. Airport CEO and 7 board members have known about aquifer contamination since testing of numerous airport monitoring wells in 2017, 18, and 19. These test results, discovered in 2023, reveal PFAS in and on the city-county-owned airport property, all while the CARA ordinance was being updated. It is past time. Stop the prevarication, stop the procrastination. Work with your West Plains constituents and volunteers and face into and solve our collective problems. 3 things. Immediately form the Water Resource Task Force, or whatever you want to call it, PFAS, Water Resource, including citizen reps from Airway Heights, Medical Lake, Cheney, and Four Lakes, and I will add the 17 different organized, recognized neighborhoods on the West Plains, and also require full engagement from our Spokane Regional Health District, who has been alarmingly absent in this process. 2, assign the update of the CARE ordinance to the very capable County Water Resources Program to closely examine the conditions within the West Plains aquifer and the risk-laden developments, landfill, gravel pits, being approved within the 5 paleo channels on the West Plains. By the way, those West Plains were omitted from this map that you're about to get, 2018. We knew about the paleo channels then. It is time to update and live by regulations and policies that govern development throughout the county, and particularly on the West Plains, where we have a massive crisis. Number 3, we ask the entire board to lead the county on an aquifer protection area ballot issue in 2025 in order to support long-term solutions to our contaminated drinking water consumed by more than 16,000 residents daily. The West Plains aquifer requires protections commensurate with the Spokane Valley or Rathdrum Prairie aquifer. Please put your decision to take or not take action in writing, as I asked you last week at this very meeting. Do you have any questions? Any comments? Any full attention by anybody? Thank you.
I would state that we don't make comments after public testimony. Marilyn Sullivan is next.
Hello, I'm Marilyn Sullivan. I live at 8402 East Sandalwood Lane, Spokane 99217. I'd like to remind you all that in Washington State, assessors must consider contamination when evaluating property under several laws, to wit, Model Toxics Control Act, MTCA. This state law, also known as Chapter 70A.305 RCW, governs the cleanup of contaminated sites and requires assessors to consider contamination when evaluating property values. Comprehensive Environmental Response, Compensation, and Liability Act, also known as Superfund. This federal law requires the assessment and cleanup of contaminated sites impacting property assessments. Washington State Department of Ecology regulations. These regulations provide guidance on property inspections and due diligence to ensure properties are free from contamination before transactions. These laws ensure that contaminated properties are properly assessed and that any potential risks are identified and mitigated. Thank you.
Thank you. So that takes us to the end of our public comment for today. Thank you all for being part of that. Next on our agenda is a proclamation. So I will look to Commissioner French.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I'm going to read into the record as a motion. Whereas the residents of Spokane County have great respect and the utmost gratitude for the men and women who have selflessly served our country and this community in the armed forces. And whereas veterans continue to serve our community in the American Legion, Veterans of Foreign Wars, religious groups, civil groups, and by functioning as county veteran services officers in 29 states to help fellow former service members access more than $52 billion in federal health, disability, and compensation benefits each year. And whereas approximately 200,000 service members transition to civilian communities annually, and whereas an estimated 20% increase of service members will transition to civilian life in the near future, and whereas studies indicate that 44 to 72% of service members experience high levels of stress during transition from military to civilian life, And whereas active military service members transitioning from military service are at a high risk for suicide during their first year after military service. And whereas the National Association of Counties encourages all counties, parishes, and boroughs to recognize Operation Greenlight for veterans. And whereas Spokane County appreciates the sacrifices of our United States military personnel and believes specific recognition should be granted, therefore be it resolved that in observance of Operation Greenlight, Spokane County encourages its citizens in patriotic tradition to recognize the importance of honoring all those who have made immeasurable sacrifices to preserve freedom by displaying green lights in a window of their place of business or residence from November 4th through the 11th of 2024, dated this 29th day of October by the Board of Commissioners for Spokane County.
Second.
I have a motion and second for the proclamation. Is there any other comments?
I would. I come from a family of military servicemen and women. I served in the Marine Corps during Vietnam. My dad was 20-year Army. My brother-in-law is a one-star general in the Air Force, and my nephew is in the Navy. We know the sacrifices that not only our men and women in uniform make every day, but also their families. Their families are in service to this country just like those in uniform. And so as we reach out and honor those military men and women that have served this country, to make sure that we can maintain our freedoms that America is known for, I ask that you also keep in mind their families who also serve this country. And to all the veterans in this community, I say thank you. Thank you from the deepest part of my heart for all your service, all your sacrifice. I've walked in your shoes, and I know the path you've traveled. And it's not been easy, but I deeply appreciate the service you provided to this community and to this country. Thank you.
I will just say, as a civic leader, and I have family that has been in the military as well. My dad actually served at the end of World War II and then was again drafted in the Korean War. So he got to serve in two different branches of the government at that point. But I think as a civic leader and watching with the Air Force across the nation, it's just so important to be, to do the Operation Greenlight. I think to see how that green light shines and shows and lets people know that we're thinking about them, the things that the families are going through, as well as the people that are in service. So with Veterans Day coming upon us, I think it's important that I think it's great that the National Association of Counties, came up with this and has this idea to light up for the green, do the green light. And I think you'll see on the courthouse when we do it for the week, it's pretty spectacular, and does just help us all think about the service that you have, that you do, the commitment that you've made, the freedoms that we have, and the sacrifice that your families have made. And I know we have a lot of veterans in the audience today. I'm looking around to the entire audience, and I would just say, if there's any veterans in the audience, would you please stand right now? So thank you all for your service. We appreciate that. And with that, then I will call for the vote, and then we'll call for the vote, and then I'll have people come down. So all those in favor of the proclamation, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Motion passes unanimously. So I'd like to ask Kat, I think you might be speaking, but after you're done speaking, I'll have you introduce people in the audience, but I want to make sure that we have Wes Anderson, who's a chaplain with the Veterans of Foreign Wars, the Veterans Advisory Board members, partners from the U.S. Veterans Administration, and other veterans that are in the audience. So I'll let you speak on their behalf.
I'm honored to speak on their behalf. This is a great group we have here. Also, thank you, Commissioner French, for acknowledging our military spouses. There's a couple in the room. Wave your hands, ladies. We appreciate the service that they give as well, right alongside their service members. So I'm going to brag a little bit about our leaders we have here in Spokane County that enabled me back in 2017 to establish a regional Veterans Services Center. We have it out on Evergreen now. We have served since then over 40,000 veterans in this area. This amazing team, led by Chris Dorchis here, has filed over 4,000 claims, bringing in over $20 million in federal VA claims awards to our county. So thank you, team. And we're going to have them come up. If it's not too much, if you'll just come around, and when you come by the mic, say your name and branch of service, and then we'll get in line for a picture. Does that work? All right.
Yes, that works great. And then I do want to just recognize that we have retired Colonel Brian Newberry also from.
And we have an actively serving colonel in the audience as well.
And do we? Okay, very good.
Yeah.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you. I'll have them go ahead and come down.
Come on, team. Kat Nichols, U.S. Army.
Chris Dorchis, Air Force.
Julio Torres, Air Force.
Brad Condon, Air Force.
Marvin Tucker, Army.
Megan Ross, Air Force.
Jeannie Bauk, married to Air Force.
Sarah Dye, Air Force. Megan Prescott, Air Force.
Wes Anderson, United States Marine Corps.
Ryan Smith, U.S. Army.
Okay, and then Colonel Newberry.
You do take care of the veterans better of any place I've lived, and I've lived in 13 states. God bless Spokane County. Brian Newberry, Aim High Air Force. Just a second.
Hold on. Commissioners in the Veteran Services Group, I just wanted to, and those in the room here and online, this is really important information and great stats that our Veteran Services Office has delivered on behalf of our community. Kat Nichols, Chris Dorchis, the rest of the team, it really shows how they've moved the needle on behalf of our veterans. Their success rate getting claims submitted and approved is the hallmark of Washington State. Not just Spokane County, Washington State. They have delivered what, 30%, over 30% of the claims in Washington State, and that's just for Spokane County. For the whole state, are responsible. Our team is responsible for over 30% of the claims. So fantastic job. This just highlights some of the great work that they do, in addition to just being an outstanding team. So thank you.
So Jim, I think we've got one more to do. Thank you, though, for being on the ready. Okay, so I will then look to my fellow commissioners for the next piece on the agenda.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve items 4 and 5, including all sub-items on today's agenda.
Second.
Okay, I have a motion and a second to approve items 4 and 5 and all sub-items on today's agenda. Any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That will then take us to item number 6, and Mr. Amacio is going to come up and speak to that.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Jim Amacio for the record, Special Deputy Prosecuting Attorney. I wanted to share with the board why last week we took action on the potential sale of county property different than we've done in previous years. Normally speaking, as Commissioner Kearns noted, when the Board of County Commissioners determines to surplus and sell county property, we hold a public hearing, and then after the close of the public hearing, the board moves to make a decision to determine its surplus, how it will be sold, and to set a minimum bid, as the case might be. Recently, we had a very smart deputy prosecuting attorney who looked closely at the state law and the county ordinances. We have adopted county ordinances that deal with the sale of county property also. And when he looked at the county ordinances closely, it indicated that once you hold your public hearing to determine the property surplus, to determine a minimum price, and determine how you're going to dispose of it, you have to wait until the next hearing date to make a decision. We had always been doing it at the same hearing. And so in conversations with representatives of the Public Works Department, we're going to go back and modify the county code so we can continue to do it as we've been doing it previously. That is to say, make a decision on the same day that the board holds your public hearing, closes your public hearing, and then you can make the decision that day. So what you have in front of you today, board members, is a continued decision to determine whether or not you want to declare surplus, set a minimum price of $438,000, and sell by auction on Gov Deals, Spokane County Assessor Parcel Number 46354.9155. This is simply your day for a decision. The resolution with Deborah Firkins has prepared declares the surplus, sets the minimum price of $438,000 to sell it, provides that it will be sold at public auction on Gov Deals, and if it's not sold in public auction within 12 months, that you can sell it by a private sale for the minimum price. So that's the background on why we switched what we were doing, and then I think the matter's just in front of the board to make a decision, unless you'd like Deborah Firkins to come up and further brief you on what took place last week. Thank you, Madam Chair.
We see your way in the back. I think we're okay. Are you ready for make a motion, or would you like Jim to make the motion? Yeah, Jim, would you like to come up and make the motion?
A lot of parts there to that one. So I move that we adopt the resolution as presented by Deborah Firkins, that the property is deemed surplus, that we set a minimum bid of $438,000 to be sold at auction on Gov Deals, and if it does not reach the minimum bid, it can be sold to a private seller at a later date, to a private buyer at a later date. Is that sufficient?
Right on, Vice Chair.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
Second?
Okay.
It was so good, I had to second it.
Exactly. I'm not going to repeat it. So I have a motion and a second on 6A. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Aye. Aye. Motion passes unanimously. That will then take us to item 7A, which is a public hearing item. And it looks like we have Ben Bradabo, who's going to be speaking to it.
Thank you, Madam Chair.
Today, coming to you to request modifications to Spokane County Code for sanitary sewer code, specifically for sanitary sewer code for fats, oils, and grease, industrial pretreatment, electronic reporting, and then some the process we use for connection charges and setting up new accounts for sewer billing. And so the slides outline the different sections. There's 4 slides. This is adding some definitions to our fats, oils, and grease program that we've been implemented for about a year. We're in the education phase right now, working with our customers to make sure they understand the requirements. And this just adds clarity as we've implemented it, and we've realized what some of the changes that need to improve the code to allow flexibility for customers to use. Next slide. This pretreatment reporting requirement, this is something that we're required to do to allow our industrial pretreatment customers that have a specific permit with Spokane County Wastewater to submit their required documents electronically, similar to how we submit our documents to the state. This is just trickling down to have us submit, have our customers be able to submit these documents. Next slide. And then this piece here is on connection charge agreements. This is a little modification to our process for when new customers come in. This is a way to inform our customers of the charges that will be due for a sewer connection, but it's taking away the agreement piece. What was happening is some of the accounts were getting tied up with the agreement side and having a signed form. And so this essentially just says they'll be informed of the charges, and they will become automatic, put onto their monthly bill as they make connections. And then the other piece is that it cleans up how they'll actually be charged. Once the home gets built, the charges get deferred until construction is done and certificate of occupancy, and streamlines that process. Next slide. And this is more of that, again, when monthly sewer charges will be charged to customers as they've come online. And this is a way we've set it up with our building permit process. It's in eliminating the requirement for a DocuSign electronic signature form. We're using the automated portal where builders would get approval for a new construction, and once the certificate of occupancy is issued, we then can move forward with sewer billing. Available for any questions?
Are there any questions for Ben?
Can you, I think you touched on this when you briefed it earlier, but can you talk about, does this align us with other jurisdictions nearby?
That's a great question. I didn't touch on, and this is on for which part, I guess, sorry.
Just the code change. I thought that you said there was updated kind of regional standards, and this was bringing us kind of up to speed with what other jurisdictions were doing.
That's definitely for the fats, oils, and grease piece. That's a change, and we're coordinating really closely with the city of Spokane as we update our code on that. And then the electronic signature piece for industrial pretreatment is actually a federal requirement, and so that will be aligned. The city of Spokane already has that in place, and so we're catching up with the city of Spokane. And the connection charge agreements, I'm actually not familiar. It's probably our own process. I'm not totally familiar. Louis Graff may be able to address that if he had any thoughts on that.
Yeah, on the connection charge agreement side, it's more a process so that we don't hold up the building permits. And we're in our code we outline how different parcels are going to be charged for either their connection permits or their O&M permits or their charges, but we don't necessarily need to have them sign an agreement that they're agreeing to pay or agreeing to comply with our code. We're just, implementing our code and setting up the charges that way. So, any other questions on that? Thank you.
Okay, this is a public hearing item, so I will open it up for public hearing. If there's anyone who'd like to come down and testify, please come forward, or please raise your hand online. Second call for anyone wishing to testify. I'm not seeing anyone in the audience or anyone online. Third and final call for anyone wishing to testify. Again, seeing no one coming forward and no one online, I will close the public testimony and look to my fellow commissioners.
Madam Chair, I move that we approve public hearing item number 7 in the matter of modifying Spokane County Code, Chapter 8.03 and 8.03A related to fats, oils, greases, electronic reporting for pretreatment, remove requirements for sewer connection charge agreements.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Seeing none, all those in favor, please signify by saying aye.
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 Motion passes unanimously. That takes us to the end of our agenda. I will just make sure that we can use your stamp, Commissioner Waldron.
Yes, thank you.
Okay, and then Commissioner French has something.
Thank you, Madam Chair. So this morning, we had a ribbon-cutting ceremony for Bigelow Gulch, which is now open to the public, and if you haven't driven it yet, treat yourself to a great ride. As part of the ceremony, one of the 3 state agencies that contributes money to that project was Transportation Improvement Board, which I sit on. And our executive director, Ashley Probart, was present but was not in a position to where he could give this beautiful wooden plaque to the county to be displayed with a great deal of pride. And it says, presented to Spokane County, Commissioner Mary Cooney, Spokane County Board Chair, in recognition of her successful partnership in completing Bigelow Gulch Forker Road Urban Connector, October 2024, grant funding provided by the Washington State Transportation Improvement Board with the support of your 4th District State legislators, Mike Padden, Representative Suzanne Schmidt, and Representative Lenny Christian. So he did want me to make sure that I presented this to the board, and so you've been presented. Thank you.
Very good. That's very nice, and we'll figure out where it gets hung. So any other items to come before the board?
Nothing for me, Commissioner.
Okay.
Nothing from me, Commissioner.
Okay. Thank you very much. With that, then, we'll adjourn, and we don't have any executive sessions, correct? Okay. We'll be adjourning, and we'll sign some documents and see everyone next week. Thank you all very much.